Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my weekly compendium, completing the week of August 16, 2021. Case file number 222, written by Thin Man. His friend was casted in a random book he just picked up. I wouldn't say that this was creepy, but it's definitely one of the most quaintly surreal things I've ever experienced. So, back in 2016, I was injured at work, and for about 6 months of my life consisted of going to physical therapy and being confined to bed until I could walk again. With that in mind, I had a lot of time to read books. One of the books that I was reading was Ex-Heroes by Peter Clines. Now, I don't know about anyone else, but when I read a book, I like to cast the characters in my head, coming up with how they look. One of the minor characters in this book was named Ilya, and because I know someone named Ilya, and because the book is set in Los Angeles where I live, the Ilya in my book became the Ilya that I knew in my imagination. But then, something strange started to happen. The Ilya in the book made specific references to movies like Aliens, a movie which the Ilya I know is a huge fan of. The Ilya in the book was a big fan of firearms, as the Ilya that I know is too. Put into words, these details seem slim, but there was something so strange about the character in this book that I eventually reached out to the Ilya that I knew to ask about it. Turns out that he knows the author, Peter Clines, who had put him in the book. What are the odds that I would choose to buy a random book with a story that takes place essentially on my street in Los Angeles and features someone I know in real life as a minor character? That just blew my mind, and it's easily one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had. Case file number 223, written by Torn Black Jacket. Was it an elaborate crime, a government conspiracy, or even aliens? Not a big believer in the paranormal, so I tried to come up with a semi-rational explanation of what happened, but I'm still very unconvinced and confused, and now I'm just willing to hear everyone else's insights or theories so I can maybe find something I missed. I live with my sister, and neither of us has a car, so we have to walk pretty much everywhere. We also tend to go places together since we don't exactly feel safe by ourselves in our town. Let's just say it's not a nice neighborhood for women to be walking alone. We were walking back from the store and we decided to take a shortcut down this one alleyway. While we were in the alley, I noticed a woman, maybe around our age, so early 20s, walking towards us. We made eye contact and I just froze for some reason. It felt like I'd just been stunned. The woman stopped and started speaking to us, and that's where my memory just sort of goes blank. The next thing I know, I'm in bed and it's 4 hours later. I don't remember walking home or falling asleep. I shook my sister awake and she was just as confused as I am. That woman is also the last thing she remembers, but neither of us can remember what the woman said, just that her eyes were red and her voice was relaxing, I guess. When she walked up to us, I remember feeling like I was on edge, but my body was too relaxed for me to move or do anything. So anyway, we checked the time and we had lost about 4 hours. Our jewelry was gone, and so was the stuff we'd gotten at the store. Also, my sister's wallet was empty. It sounds insane, but it's like the woman hypnotized us and then took our stuff. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. I've been hypnotized before and it felt kind of similar. But I also remember being told that you can only be hypnotized if you give the hypnotist consent. I tried to do a tiny bit of research, and there are apparently some alleged cases of robbers hypnotizing people, but it's never more than one victim. And it's never as dramatic as losing 4 whole hours. Plus, most people will just wake back up where they were standing. I have no idea how my sister and I got back home and into bed. The one person I told said it sounded like an alien abduction, but that's way too far-fetched for me to buy into as a theory. Anyone got any ideas? At this point, I'll even consider really outlandish theories because I'm just totally lost trying to find something rational. Update. People in the comments wanted an update, especially with regards to the drug test we were given to see if we had in fact been drugged. Just as a bit of a warning, this might sound like I'm insane or something. When I made my original post, I was just looking for an explanation. People have given me some rather outlandish theories, which, at first, I didn't see much value in. I figured it would be something like a robbery assisted with the use of drugs somehow. Or maybe it was some form of hypnosis. Now I think there is something really weird going on. So it took a little longer than expected to get the results of the drug test back, but we eventually got called down to the police station to hear out the results, which we thought was odd. We were originally told we'd get our results back via email. When we got there, we were greeted by officers we hadn't spoken to before. It wasn't the ones we had discussed our situation with. Again, not sure if this is normal or not. They sat us down in one of the rooms and told us that our test showed signs of high marijuana and alcohol levels. My sister and I were really confused by this since we don't drink alcohol or smoke, and those don't seem like things we could get injected with or unknowingly drugged with. They essentially said, "We know you were willingly intoxicated at the time of the supposed incident. You spent your money and lost your jewelry somewhere. Then you went back home and fell asleep. No crime was committed." We tried to argue that this was impossible, but they just kept repeating themselves, trying to convince us that our amnesia was just because we were blackout drunk. Then they accused us of fabricating the story about the woman. We were told that if we ever tried to report a crime like that again, we'd be fined or detained for filing false reports. I'm not the kind of person to believe in conspiracy theories, but my sister said it felt like a cover-up, and honestly, I feel like that too. I don't know what to make of this situation, and I feel kind of lost. I have no idea what to do now other than post it here and hope someone can make sense of it. If I can't go to the police, I don't know where else I can go. Case notes, file number 223. Hey, you mentioned aliens, so I have to pop in for just a second. But sadly I have to agree, this doesn't strike me as aliens either, especially with the update. It's clear the cops don't agree with you, but this doesn't really mesh together since, as you say, you don't drink or use marijuana. So how did both of those substances get into your systems? The only thing I can think is that the lady somehow hypnotized both of you simultaneously, perfectly, then injected you both with alcohol and the chemical substance of marijuana so that if you did report it, you'd sound like pranksters filing a false police report for attention. But I mean, that's a level of scheming that puts Mission Impossible to shame. So what else could it be though? The government conspiring to steal a small amount from both of you? Maybe the CIA testing a new weapon out. Bonus file, written by That Canopy, a hidden message in plain sight. In June of 2020, I experienced a miscarriage from an unplanned pregnancy. I found out at 4 weeks exactly, then lost it at 8 weeks. The event as a whole was one of the worst things I've been through. Something you can't imagine until you're a part of that unfortunate club. A few months after miscarrying, I talked with my husband about getting a tattoo in remembrance of our loss. I didn't want anything with a name or a date, so I settled on a green gradient rainbow. Rainbows are popular in the pregnancy loss community, and green reminded me of nature and regenerative life. On January 14, 2021, my projected due date, I got the tattoo. It turned out nothing like how I imagined. There were miscommunications on both mine and the artist's side, and I was just so bummed out about the tattoo. After letting it fully heal, I shared my thoughts with my husband and said that I'd like to start the process of getting it removed and trying a different idea. It has such a personal and emotional meaning to me that I really wanted to love it and be so proud to show it off. I'm a hairstylist and I come into contact with lots of different folks, and I'm very accustomed to talking about a range of subjects, even those that are very personal. I haven't shared my miscarriage with many people or clients, but a few weeks ago I did. I found myself on the topic with a girl who I've only seen twice. It was a much deeper conversation than I expected, but not unusual as many people share their lives in my chair. In the mirror reflection, she could see my inner forearm, where my tattoo is located, while I was blow-drying her hair, and she asked me what it meant. I told her it was my baby tattoo. "Why does it say hi in it?" she asked. I immediately shot my eyes to my arm and saw what she saw. Holy crap. The area where my tattoo had healed badly now clearly has 2 letters visible. H-I. For 6 months I saw it as a smudge, but now it was so clear. See for yourself. We both sat in disbelief for a moment and got teary-eyed. I couldn't believe that this tattoo had this message on it for months on my own body, and I never noticed it. I showed my husband and he too was in disbelief. There's no way I could intentionally make it heal weird in one spot and have it shape letters, nor could the artist happen to leave this area less saturated than the rest. It has truly shown me the power of our interconnectedness, and I find comfort in the inexplicability. I'm not sure if I will go through with the removal process or not, but I'm definitely proud to show off my message and share our story. Edit. Thank you for the awards and all the kind, supportive words. It's comforting to me to see others find comfort in this too. We are all so connected. It's hard to deny that with stories like this. Edit 2. Thank you again for the supportive and loving comments and for sharing your own stories. I welcome the skeptic thoughts. Others are allowed to have their own view of things, just as I am allowed to have mine. Regardless of how it got there, it brings me comfort, and comfort is something you are desperate for after any type of loss. That being said, I have made healing progress in the years since the loss happened, and it is easier to share and talk about now. We have grown into it and with our grief, and are better people for it. Case file number 224, written by Bastards of Midnight. A vivid dream of her beloved dog. 3 years ago, my childhood dog died very suddenly and unexpectedly. She was sick for a few days, but turned it around and got better before dying very quickly and painfully in my dad's arms. I live out of state, so I wasn't able to be there for any of it. It's a 6-hour drive, and I felt very, very guilty about her passing without me being there. I had a very deep connection to her, and she had been my best friend for 12 years. I was devastated by her death. I couldn't work or eat or do much of anything. I was constantly bursting into tears. It was just awful. My heart just aches, and I found myself apologizing to her for not being there. I just felt so guilty. One night I had a dream about her. I dreamt I was in this empty space, and Charlie came running up to me, whimpering excitedly. She was licking my face and generally just freaking out, and I was sobbing. I knew she was dead, and I knew she was visiting me in my dream. I was very aware of it all. I kept hugging her and crying and apologizing, and she just kept licking my face and being affectionate. I woke up with tears streaming down my face and sat up in my bed. I could still smell her distinctive smell, and on my sleeve I pulled off one of her hairs. She had never been to my apartment, and I hadn't seen her recently. It wasn't cat hair either, as Charlie was a collie mix, and their fur pattern is very distinctive. It may all be a coincidence, but it was so vivid and real. I like to think she was visiting me to let me know everything is okay and not to worry. I haven't had a dream like that since. Case notes, file number 224. So simple, such a beautiful experience to have. Proper closure after your best girl passed on. I'm right there with you in the belief that her essence was still there, at least in some part. It's often said that animals can sense otherworldly beings, ghosts and so on. But it may carry over for us in sensing them too, or even connecting with them after they die. Case file number 225, written by Healing Potato Lemon, a mother outside of space and time. This is something that has bothered me for over a decade, so I wanted to post to get some other people's perspectives. When I was a teenager, my parents and I lived in a large house where their master bedroom was on the first floor, and my bedroom was upstairs with the other bedrooms. I have an older brother, but he had been moved out of the house for years at this point. My bedroom was at the end of a long carpeted hallway, and the stairs were all the way on the other side of the second floor, so it wasn't uncommon to not hear someone approach my room. It was around 10 p.m., and my parents had gone to bed. It was a school night, so I was supposed to be sleeping too, but I was awake messaging my friends on AIM, showing my age here. My door was barely cracked open at the time. My bedroom light was off, but my attached bathroom light was on, which dimly illuminated my bedroom doorway. I looked up to see my bedroom door swing open 18 inches or so, and my mom's dimly lit face looking at me for 1 to 2 seconds from the hallway, and then the door shut, completely latched now. My dog at the time was laying on my bed, and he looked up too. After the door shut, he sat at attention at the end of my bed like he was ready to protect me. My mom has very dark hair, and I remember thinking her hair looked a lot lighter at that moment. This will be more important later. My mom has always been quite passive-aggressive, so my first thought was that she saw I was still awake on my computer, was pissed, and stormed off. I yelled out, "Mom, Mom!" several times, and she didn't respond. Our home phones also functioned as intercoms between one another, showing my age again. So I used the home phone in my bedroom to call the home phone on my mom's bedside table. It took her several rings to pick up, and when she answered, she sounded tired. I started defending myself and apologizing for still being awake, and then asked what she wanted and why she didn't respond when I yelled out to her. She was quiet for a few confused seconds and then started asking me what I was talking about because my call had woken her up. I then asked her what she was talking about because I had just seen her open my bedroom door, look at me, shut the door, and walk away. She had no idea what I was talking about and sounded generally annoyed that I woke her up. She told me I shouldn't be awake anyways, to go to bed, and hung up. After that conversation, I started freaking out because I knew what I saw. I wasn't tired or on the verge of falling asleep in bed, or anything that could be explained by visual hallucinations caused by drifting off to sleep. I started thinking about how my mom's hair looked lighter than normal when I saw her, and realized it looked just like my aunt's hair before she had lost it to chemo. My mom and aunt looked almost identical in stature and build, and in their faces too, with the only difference being my aunt's hair being a dirty blonde color. They both kept their hair at shoulder length and had the same soft waves. My aunt, unfortunately, died from breast cancer a month or so prior to this happening, so my mind jumped to it being a paranormal experience. I didn't share those details with anyone after this happened, out of fear they would think I was crazy. I haven't had anything like this happen since. It's worth noting for anyone that looks at my post history that I do have epilepsy, but I have never had visual auras or visual experiences, and I didn't have any other symptoms of my focal seizures when this happened. If you're enjoying this video, consider giving it a like. Now on to the next story. Case file number 226, written by Tombo6969, his doppelganger chasing after his girlfriend. For the sake of context, I'll start by saying that when I was in my late teens, I used to live in a small town just outside Hamburg, not far from my girlfriend at the time. We used to spend a lot of time together and go out for lots of walks as neither of us had cars. Every few days I would walk her to Fahrschule, driving school, just up the road. Her classes always started pretty late into the evening, and it was winter in Germany, so the days were very short and it got dark very early. I used to hate when she would walk there alone. Furthermore, after dropping her off at her classes, I always tried to be there to walk her home also. I would simply depart after dropping her off and return after the duration of her class. This is where crap gets weird. One particular evening, I dropped her off as normal, only about a 20-minute walk, traversing a quiet wooded park and a few short side streets to get there. I left to go back home for about an hour or so, then departed early so that I could catch her before she left. For some reason, I arrived especially early this time and had to wait outside for about 20 minutes. It was very dark, and I was simply sitting at the bus stop across the street from the school. I waited and waited and waited, and she just wasn't exiting the doors to the school. I sat outside for probably 35 minutes just waiting there. It should be noted that I didn't have my phone on me at the time. I had thought it would just be a quick and easy excursion, so I didn't bring it. Clearly a mistake. At this point, I of course start to ponder. Has she already left? I must have missed her. She should be finished by now, etc. After about 40 minutes went by, I started contemplating heading back the way I came to see if she was walking alone. But I didn't want to risk it, just in case she hadn't actually left yet. So I remained there, waiting nervously. This is the really weird part. I'm sitting there tapping my foot, and I see two people with flashlights walking up the street from the opposite direction, apparently looking for someone. I was like, what the hell? I got up and approached to see what was going on. The two people searching were my girlfriend, who I was waiting for, and her mother. As soon as they saw me approaching, they said, "There you are! We've been looking all over for you. Where the hell have you been? And what the hell have you been doing all the way back here?" I said, "What do you mean? I've been here for 40 minutes waiting for you to leave school. Where did you two just come from?" "What's going on? I finished early today and started walking back alone. I wasn't able to contact you because I had no phone, but I saw you following me. Why are you back here now? This isn't funny." I was dumbfounded. "What are you talking about? I've been right here for 45 minutes straight." Now this is what my girlfriend saw from her perspective. After leaving slightly early from her class that day, she began walking astutely back home after noticing I hadn't arrived to pick her up yet. Assuming she would bump into me on the way, she wasn't worried about walking home alone, and she confidently began heading home. She spotted me about 500 meters away and witnessed me crossing the street, which I had actually done while walking toward the school. She expected me to approach her and greet her, but it seems I didn't notice her across the street, and we walked right by one another. This was the last time she actually saw me before meeting me again at the bus stop. Regrettably, I used to be quite the prankster. I was always teasing and messing with her, so she assumed that's what I was doing then. She thought I was intentionally ignoring her so that I would sneak around and scare her or something. I don't know. Either way, she didn't call my name because she thought I was being a dick. The creepy part. So after that initial interaction, I shortly thereafter arrived at the bus stop and proceeded to wait. She, on the other hand, had a very eventful walk. After she saw me initially, she kept walking towards home, expecting me to jump scare her or whatever, and her expectations, to her, seemed to be fulfilled. She began hearing footsteps behind her about 10 meters away. She knew it was me just messing with her. She then looked back and what she saw was me following her in my exact outfit, walking exactly how I walk, just following her and staring at the ground. According to her, it was my exact face, hair color, and even physical demeanor. To her, it was beyond the shadow of a doubt that it was me following her. So damn strange. The doppelganger said nothing, never looked up, and kept a consistent 10 meters behind her. He followed her for a few minutes down the road, just being creepy as all hell. She, of course, turned forward again and laughed at my supposed pathetic attempt to scare her, yet after an amount of time had passed, she started getting weirded out and wondering what the hell I was doing. Shortly thereafter, the footsteps stopped and she lost me around a bend in the road. She looked back confused and even called my name to no avail. She shrugged and continued forward through the wooded park near her home. It was a very quiet, dark, and creepy part, but she powered through it. Quick reminder that this entire time I was actually sitting at the bus stop. About halfway through the small park, she hears footsteps again, but they were much faster and heavier. She turns around to once again see me sprinting towards her at full tilt, baggy jeans, heavy sweater, just sprinting as fast as I could. She saw my eyes glaring into hers and like staring into her soul. At this point, she was startled. She didn't know what was happening and I was apparently booking it straight towards her. As the doppelganger got about 10 meters away, he turned and ran down another pathway in the park, running towards a non-lit, pitch-dark section of the park. Sprinting as fast as he could, like what the hell is going on? She watched as I sprinted into the darkness and faded from view. The immense confusion sparked some worry in her. She was almost home and thought maybe I was running around to meet her on the other side of the park or something. Also, she just wanted to get the hell out of that creepy-ass park. She really gave that doppelganger the benefit of the doubt that night, though. So she arrives home, asks her mother if I've arrived, and sure enough, I never showed up. She tells her mom the whole story, and they began to worry something was wrong. They waited a few minutes, then decided to look around for me. When their attempts failed, they thought to look around near the driving school again, and that's where they found the real me at the bus stop. That's basically the whole story. It was extremely peculiar, and since that day, about 6 years ago, I've been wondering what the hell it could mean. I've heard that doppelgangers are omens of death, but lately I've been thinking maybe it was some elaborate glitch or some kind of intersection of universes. What do you guys think? Case file number 227, written by J94C. Gravity was cancelled. When I was about 17, I was playing football, soccer for my American friends, with my mates in the park. I jumped up to head the ball. I'm a pretty short dude, not exactly the most athletic person, so it's not like I was trying to jump like Michael Jordan or anything. But I can safely say I've never jumped higher than I did that time, either before or since. It felt like I wasn't going to stop. When I reached my apex, I stopped mid-air. It was only for a brief moment, but I felt my body become weightless before I began my descent. I'm trying my best not to say I floated, but that was how it felt. I wasn't even going to try to bring it up with my friends at the time, although it confused me. I knew if I had said anything, they would have just shrugged me off, so I wasn't going to bother. It wasn't until everyone was asking me how I was able to jump so high and stating that they saw me stop mid-air that I started to freak out. Having them all confirm that they actually saw what happened made me think that this was a real glitch. Case file number 228, written by Blumpkin Dude. A party in the gym. A party that never happened. I went to the gym late at night with my then girlfriend, now married, and she went to go swim some laps while I went to the massage chairs. For her, this was a light workout. So about 30 to 40 minutes later, she came to where I was and explained what happened. She had been swimming and an old white guy, maybe in his 70s, jumped into the pool into her lane, wearing a black Speedo. She stood up in the pool to yell at him about being in her lane. Nobody else was there, so it isn't like there weren't empty lanes. So as she's yelling at him, somebody behind her says, "Hey, who are you talking to?" And she turns around and sees a younger guy, Hispanic looking, blue shorts and no shirt, maybe in his 20s or 30s. She said she was talking to that guy and turned around to point at him, but he was gone. Then she turned back to the guy standing on the deck, who was also gone too. I went into the men's locker room to see if anyone was in there, but it was empty except for the cleaning guy. The gym had less than a dozen people there. This was at like 2 a.m. The gym is 24/7. I asked the girl at the front desk if she saw anybody matching that description in the last few hours. It was a pretty slow night in the middle of the week, so she probably would have remembered that. The gym has surveillance cameras, and after a week, we got to see the tapes, and there was nobody there, just my wife. So would this be a glitch in the Matrix? Case file number 229, written by Burnt Orange 101, the Dihydrogen Monoxide Switcheroo. Today after work, I went to pick up my dog, heading to the beach to meet my parents and kids, roughly a 3.5 to 4 hour drive. As I began my drive, I decided to stop at McDonald's for a quick bite to eat because I hadn't had dinner yet and I wasn't going to arrive at the beach until around 9 to 9:30. I ordered a combo meal and wasn't really feeling a soda at the moment, so I ordered a bottle of water instead, only to be completely baffled by the fact that the employee at the drive-thru window handed me a bottle of Aquafina, blue lid and everything. I was so pressed over this that I even stopped my car and frantically Googled, McDonald's started serving Pepsi products? And bottled Aquafina at McDonald's. I found nothing really, except results for some weird tweet that Pepsi made earlier this year about BK, McDonald's, and Wendy's, and a bunch of results, crossing out Aquafina and replacing it with Dasani. So I was like, okay, whatever. I guess this McDonald's was simply out of the Dasani water that they usually serve with the McDonald's logo on them, and had to run to the closest store to grab some cases. Things happen. Well, about halfway through my drive, I reached down and grabbed my bottle of water, just to get this huge knot in my stomach out. And legitimately, I nearly wrecked my car because I'm in so much shock over the fact that my bottle of water, now clear as day, says Dasani and has a green lid. It morphed from Aquafina into Dasani. Case file number 230, written by Los Angeles 323 LOL. Bar cast spell, fear. It's very successful. Here in Los Angeles, California, in East LA, in the bad part of town, there used to be a little dive bar where we used to go. We have many good memories, vids and pics of all the good times we had there. Also, drinks were really cheap. A beer was $2, which is really good when compared to other bars where the same beer is $7 or $8. The only thing I didn't like is that they played Spanish music really loud, and I mean so loud you could hear it a block away. But whatever, we went because drinks were cheap, and everyone working there knew us because we were regulars, and they were so nice to us, and they also had pool tables. We were heartbroken when they closed down the place. The owner told us the rent was getting too expensive, and she couldn't afford it anymore. And this was before the virus, when they shut down. So they had been closed down for more than a year, almost 2 years. And the place looks run down already. Gangsters spray painted all over it. It looks really sad. So 2 days ago, my aunt that lives in East LA called me and told me she was having a barbecue and to bring my friend over. So we went there, to her house. I drank a few beers. Then at around 11 at night, my friend and I decided to walk home. I know it's a bad idea, especially in East LA, which is considered a bad area with a lot of gangsters. But we had a few beers in us and we felt rather brave. So we started walking. And as we were getting close to the street where the bar is, we heard loud music, Mexican music. We were thinking, what the hell? So we continued walking further until we got to the bar. And we almost crapped our pants. We froze. It didn't look run down anymore. It looked like it did 2 years ago when it was open. And we heard laughs and people singing karaoke inside. But I noticed something strange. The door was open, but it looked pitch black. We couldn't see anything inside, which was really strange because usually in that place, you could always see a bluish purplish light in the door because they had a bead curtain in the entrance, so you could see the bluish light coming from the inside. But this time, it looked pitch black, which was freaky. And I was about to step in when my friend pulled me from the neck of my shirt. And I even got mad. I was like, what the hell? This is my favorite shirt, you're gonna stretch it out. She screamed at me and told me, don't go in. And that's when I turned around and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt fear. Something told me, don't go in. I immediately felt something very wrong and so much fear. I told my friend, you're right, let's get the hell out of here. We ran home. We got there and were pretty shook up. The next day we went there again. The place looked run down again and dirty. We asked around locals, the people there, if they had been open the night before, and everyone laughed in our face and told us, what the hell are you guys smoking? This place has been closed down for 2 years and it certainly didn't open last night. We both felt so stupid. But we know what we saw and we weren't even drunk at all. We only had 2 beers, so we weren't drunk and we certainly hadn't done any drugs to hallucinate. So what we saw was real. I'm glad I have my friend as a witness. I just think, glitch? Parallel universe? And what would have happened if I had gone in there? Like I said, something stopped me. I felt this resonating fear, more potent than I've ever experienced before. Something warned me not to go in there. Get away. Case file number 231, written by Tepek01. A crash and a call. This happened a long time ago, late 80s. It was a summer before my senior year in high school. My sister was visiting my grandmother, and it was just my mom and myself at home. About 1 a.m., the phone rings. Woke both of us up, because getting a middle of the night call then just wasn't normal. My mom answers, her face instantly showing a bunch of worry and shock and concern. Hangs up, turns to me, tells me my stepfather had called and to get in the car. We have to go pick him up. He'd gone out earlier that night with a friend of his. We went to a friend's house. It's a little bit out into the country. No cars in the driveway, but just the front door is open. Both of the friend's dogs are just laying down in the living room. The porch light and all the lights in the house are turned on. We walk through the house calling for them and get no answer. Dogs pay us no mind. We're only there a couple of minutes when my stepfather pulls up in his van. It was one of those old Chevy cargo vans that had the spare tire mounted in the front. Tire is missing. Front of the van is crushed in more than a little. He and his friend get out of the van and look at us in surprise and shock, trying to find out why we were even there. Turns out they had been in an accident, swerved to miss a deer, and hit a tree. Tire on the front probably saved their lives. They were going to go to the friend's house to call my mom because it was the closest place to where they were and they didn't feel safe enough to drive all the way to the hospital. My stepfather ended up with more than a dozen stitches going into his hairline from where his head had hit the steering wheel. It was the weirdest experience I've ever had in my entire life. Between the phone call and the house all lit up but empty, the dogs just chilling out in the living room, it makes the hair on my arm stand up even now, so many years later. Case notes, file number 231. By the way, do you remember the details about the voice your mom heard from your stepdad during the call? Did it sound like he was hurt, that it was an emergency in that moment? I'm guessing by her reaction that was the case, but it's quite something indeed. And the friend's house, was he home? Seems odd that the front door was just open at 1 a.m. Did the friend get the call too? The author responded to my comment, saying, as far as I'm aware, she did think it was my stepfather calling and didn't look particularly spooked, like he didn't sound right or something, just worried and concerned because he said he'd been in an accident. My stepfather and his friend had gone out for the evening. Don't remember what, why, or where. The friend's house was the closest location to the accident that they felt they could get to safely call my mom and have her take them to the hospital. We arrived at the friend's house before they, stepfather and friend, arrived from the scene of the accident. The accident was on the country road, and if I remember right, the location of the accident wasn't very close to any other houses or farms or anything like that, so they had to travel a little bit to get to a phone, and the friend's house was reasonably close. We never had any idea why the door was open or the lights were on. It was just one more strange thing on a very strange night. Case Notes, file number 232, written by Jackie Sparrow, A Glitch of Light. A few weeks ago, my girlfriend and I were driving back late at night from the carnival. The particular road we took was empty, as it usually is in that part of the country. There's no lights at the side of said road, and it was foggy. While we were driving, a sudden single light pops up behind the car, maybe about a kilometer away, moving closer at a very fast pace. I said to my girlfriend, that motorcyclist is very brave. He's moving fast. She looks around and she says, yeah, he is. At about 500 meters, maybe closer, he suddenly steers off to the right, which was odd because there was no exit, just a straight road with forest and a ditch on both sides. Thinking he had an accident, we stopped and drove to where the light disappeared. The grass seemed as if someone actually did go through, but no one was to be found. Being an abandoned part of the country, we didn't feel like we should be going into the forest because we seriously could get lost in the dark. And besides, if someone did have an accident, they'd be in the ditch or the grass behind the ditch. We just shrugged it off and went on our way. Not even a minute later, the light appeared again, this time entering from the left and moving even faster. When the light was very close, I couldn't see it in my mirror anymore, like it should be at a dead angle. I looked to my left where it should have been, and nothing was there. My girlfriend was seriously freaking out and said to not stop no matter what. We didn't encounter any more strange lights that night. Case file number 233, written by My Home on Whore Island, Glitch in the Waitress. I was just telling a friend this story today and thought to also post it here, so for your glitching pleasure, here we go. About 5 years ago, I was serving at a Greek diner. One slow night, I see a woman walk in, about 50 years old, with a little boy tagging along behind her. He looked about 10, with a yellow shirt. I saw them head to a table, so I stood behind the bar and started pouring water to bring over. The kid was about the right age to be too old for kid cups, so I casually asked the other server working, "Hey, Nicole, you think that little guy is big enough for an adult cup? Or should I bring a kiddie instead?" Nicole looked up at me, confused, and said, "What little guy?" "Well, that little boy that came in with the lady over there. I glanced over and now she's seated, alone." "She came in by herself," said Nicole. "No, I saw him. He was about yay high, yellow shirt, maybe 10? She looked at me again and said, "Okay, now you're creeping me out. She came in alone, I swear. There is no little boy." I was shocked, folks. I asked Nicole to take the table for me. Part of me wishes I had told the woman, but I was afraid she'd think I was nuts. Hell, I thought I was nuts. I swear on all that is holy, I saw that little boy, just as clear as anything. He was there, and then he just wasn't. Case file number 234, written by The Man, The Beard, a door forced open by itself. When I was a teenager, my family lived in a big 115-year-old brick house. Plenty of creepy stuff happened, but one night I was heading to bed when the door between the first floor kitchen and the basement stairs absolutely slammed shut. It had a unique sound that I recognized immediately as a kitchen/basement door. There were no windows open that could have caused a draft. Our dog was asleep on the second floor. I was on the second floor. My parents were both asleep on the third floor attic, which had been converted to a master bedroom. None of us could have shut the door. Now I'm freaking terrified. I worked up the courage to go investigate, carrying my hilariously teeny pocket knife for protection. As I went downstairs, I turned on every light. When I reached the kitchen, the door was wide open. Even more freaked out, I ran back up to bed, leaving the lights on. A minute or two later, I heard a definite, "Shh, okay," from downstairs. I laid in bed and was ready to accept my demise. Eventually, I somehow fell asleep, and in the morning, I was there first, downstairs. I woke up before my parents and our dog, and found that the lights were all off and the basement door had been shut again, but nothing anywhere was stolen. If you're enjoying this video, consider giving it a like. Now on to the next story. Case file number 235, written by Watermelly3. Freeze, sucker! Now press play. About 2 years ago, I went to collect my husband from the ferry after work. My husband got into the car, and as I was driving very slowly out of the car park, we both noticed two people standing a few meters in front of our car. It looked as though they were strangers, older-looking professionals, both walking to their separate cars in different areas of the car park. The man was reaching into his side bag, and the lady was further ahead than the man, with her head turned to the right. I know the exact positions they were in, because they were completely frozen on the spot. My husband and I sat there watching the frozen strangers, not saying anything to each other, and then all of a sudden, it was like someone pressed play, and the two strangers just continued on like nothing had happened. My husband and I promised each other that we would never forget how weird the experience was. I can't remember exactly how long they stayed frozen like that, but it was long enough to freak us both out. Bonus file, written by Fright Yagami, a stalwart defender against evil. I grew up in an 8-bedroom farmhouse with my dad until I was old enough to move out. We always had extra rooms not being used, and because of the age of the house plus all this extra space, there was always an eeriness like someone was looming in the shadows. If I had to get a drink in the middle of the night, I looked at the ground the whole time because I was scared of what may be looking back at me from the dark corners, rooms, and hallways. Even the windows and mirrors were avoided because I wasn't sure what I'd see looking back at me. When I was around 12 years old, I questioned why the room that used to be my nursery was locked from the outside. I didn't think it was weird before then. My dad needed a room for storage, and I figured he just wanted to keep me out, for whatever reason. I brought it up to him one day, asking what's so important in there that he needs to keep me out, even though I'm not a child anymore. Typical 12-year-old mentality. Turns out that I was not entirely correct about the lock. My dad, with a very serious demeanor, sat me down and answered my inquiry. When I was a baby, 1 to 2 years old, I slept in this nursery room on the second floor, next to my dad's room. This room was painted by my sister, especially for me, with Winnie the Pooh characters and fluffy clouds, the type of thing I think back on and appreciate. The effort and creativity was so admirable. I have a photo of me smiling at Pooh Bear on the wall while we were setting it up, but I'm not the most tech-savvy to figure out how to link this photo. Anyway, I was in this nursery in my crib, again right next to my dad's room, the perfect age to be on my own. Every night though, my dad was woken up by me screaming and crying. He had raised 4 children before me, so he was not making first-time parent mistakes that would otherwise be in question. He thought it was probably the switch to being in my own room rather than being in his room that caused my nightly discomfort. He considered bringing my crib back into his room, but of course the nursery was all ready to go. I had just graduated to it. For a while when I cried in terror, he would come in and check on me, only to find that nothing was wrong in the sense of present stressors like temperature, diaper change, hunger or thirst, etc. He would stay with me until I fell asleep or keep the light on to make me feel safer, and then return to his room to get some actual rest. One night, after finally having enough of my distress, he decided to camp out on the floor of my nursery to see if he could figure out what was the matter, but mostly to try and sleep through the night. This was the last time anyone slept in there. I was able to doze off now that I wasn't alone. He, on the other hand, was tossing and turning on the hardwood floor, not comfortable enough to sleep. As he lay there on the floor, mulling over the situation, boom, 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 he was jolted to his feet by a few massive blows to the floorboards beneath him, centered directly on his back, as if someone on the first floor had a battering ram aimed at the ceiling. His first instinct was to rush downstairs and check for intruders. He is a man of logic, brave and ready to defend his family. However, when he got down there, the lights were off. There was no one downstairs, front door locked, windows locked, no sign of forced entry anywhere, and no one else lived with us. Our closest neighbor was down the road 1/4 of a mile, and why would they break in just to bang on the ceiling? let alone have it mapped out where my dad would be sleeping in my nursery. And the force of the blows, this wasn't normal. After the event, my dad brought my crib back into his bedroom, and I was able to sleep without screaming or crying, beyond needing a diaper change or something normal. He brought the Bible into the nursery for extra measure and casted out any evil that may have invited itself there. He locked up that nursery and only used it for storage after that, and only went in during the daytime. To this day, that old lock is still on the door, as if a lock will keep spirits locked in, maybe with iron. Short of pretending that experience never happened, he couldn't rationalize it enough to do anything else. We think that the entity was evil and malicious, and when my dad tried protecting me, this only pissed it off. As I grew up in that house, I had a hard time sleeping in any room on my own. Many nights I ended up rushing to the couch in the living room, turning on the TV and watching Disney till I fell asleep. But even then, I was not comfortable. There were always eyes on me. There were many unexplained events from the farmhouse, but this was the most direct encounter with evil my dad has ever had. Case notes, bonus file. Well, I just wanted to say that your dad is a brave man indeed, a true guardian spirit even though he was still but a man. In many ways that makes it more impressive than someone who had special powers or was beyond the mortal realm, like an angel. He's the type of father that I hope to be one day.